Hi, I'm James Willerton, and this video is the art of the vision, in which I'm going to attempt in less than 10 minutes to describe to you what an organizational vision is, what it's there to do, and some of the kind of practical tools and techniques we can use to try and create and test it, implement it, and one or two resources that may help you. I wanted to do this now because I think it's a great time to address our organizational visions as leaders. And I'm hoping this video will be of some interest to those that do want to do that. And so let's move straight into it. I thought I'd start by positioning what the vision really is. And so traditionally you would have vision, mission, values working in some kind of combination as a kind of guiding lights for an organization. And that's fine. Anybody who's been in my classrooms will know I have a bit of an issue with organizational values. Not per se, but in terms of how they're often put together. So I might put this a little bit differently if it was me. What I would certainly say, though, is the vision is a photograph of the future. It's the desired future state. And really, in that sense, it should guide everything else in the organization. The vision, if it's done well, is the statement of primacy that overrules and looks over and influences everything else in the organization. That's why it's so important. But yet we don't seem to give it the kind of attention it often deserves. And I want to try and help to address that with this video. First thing is that there's no right or wrong way to do a vision. There's just some guidance we can give you. But the vision will obviously change according to what organization you are. So if you have a huge corporate structure, multiple countries, lots of finances, lots of people, etc., then your vision might be desired future state, organizational potential to look like this giant redwood tree here. It's big, it's solid, it has an impact, very well structured, very well engineered for its purpose of being as big as possible. Or it may be that you are a consultant, or maybe you have a small business, small, medium-sized enterprise perhaps, and the most important thing to you is how people perceive you. It's more of an aesthetic vision about, you know, you want to smell good, you want to look good, you know, and it's a very different type of vision, and it's fine, you know, not all visions are the same. So although I think it's useful to look at visions from all sorts of different organizations, the only really important thing is that it's right for you and describes what your organizational DNA is coding for, what you're trying to achieve. If you can get a grip of that, then it guides so much more that comes behind that to help you hopefully achieve it. So why do we do a vision? Number one, it should improve cultural alignment, behavioral alignment all across the organization. It should be the score upon which you write your strategy. And you could even describe a strategy as that set of plans, policies, actions which specifically take your organization towards the vision. The vision should inform those structures. So just as we looked at redwood tree versus rose bush and whatever other kind of plant you think your organization wants to be, that will determine to some extent how it's structured, how a hierarchy works, you know, what the organizational development type structure is, who owns it, how it's financed, how you recruit and retain and promote, and all those things. The vision should really have some impact on those aspects. Very usefully, it should guide new products and service development. I'll deal with that as we look at some examples. And it allows everybody to plug in their talents, their time, their commitment, in order that, you know, whoever we have in the organization, we're trying to achieve some potential. I think on the flip side of this, if there isn't a clear common purpose and a common vision for everybody, that piece of alignment and plugging in and committing becomes that much harder, doesn't it? How do we create one then? A good place to start is by those two sentences there. Springboard to a vision could be, our vision is to, or we are here to, ... And you don't have to write yours that way, but if you're struggling a little bit to get going, they're not a bad place to begin. Think about the impact you want your organization to have on the outside world and how it's going to interact with those end consumers of its product, of its service. Can you evolve the existing one perhaps and rewrite it and improve it and refine it and make it more precise, or do you need something completely different? What's the reason? What are you trying to achieve with it in the first place? Hopefully, some of the aspects in the previous slide. If it's not those, is it the right thing to be doing in the first place? Who is going to write it? Who are you going to write it for? Top answer there would be the people who work in the organization, ideally. And how are you going to write it? There isn't just one way to go about it, which again we'll have a quick look at. First resource here to look at, to recommend as reading is Simon Sinek's excellent book, Start With Why. It helps to differentiate the kind of how we do things and the what we do, as opposed to why we do it, which is what people are really interested in. We've created a vision then. How do we pass it through that initial stress test of, is it fit for purpose? Number one, does it explain the organizational why that Simon Sinek talks about? Number two, does it avoid buzzwords or unmeasurable fluffiness? Yeah, it can be audacious goal stuff, but can you get a grip of it? Is it in any way measurable or not? Does the vision include verbs which are forward-looking and are focused on that future? Does the vision inspire? So it creates that vivid image while still being accessible, believable, relatable for those people. And does it explain the proposition that your organization has, that maybe your unique selling point, something that differentiates you a little bit? Good test for this is if you could apply your vision to any other business and it's generic, it's probably not specific enough. Here are some examples. So we have a couple here I'd like to, as you read through these as I'm talking, a couple here which I want to draw your attention to in particular. One is Toyota. You'll mention here that you'll see here that Toyota don't mention cars. They talk about the future of mobility, and through phrasing their problem, if you like, the problem they're trying to address or find solutions for in this wider way, that enables them to find more innovative solutions to that problem too. So they don't just talk about making the best cars, they talk about the future of mobility. It's quite different actually, as I'm sure you'll see. Netflix also talks about this helping content creators to find a global audience. They don't just talk about being a channel or a streaming service. They're a bridge between the content creator and audience. That describes their market very specifically in a broad sense, and that would then, I think, go on to influence how they go about addressing those markets and products and services to both. Another good signpost for you here then is Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. So because if we take the idea that vision is so important and fundamental, why do we just give it a soundbite treatment? And he talks about the idea of actually not doing that and describing in better detail, in more compelling terms and more depth, what vision is there to do. How do you make one fly once you've got one? Okay, so is it aligned with the other kind of critical components of vision, mission, values, strategy? Is the leadership brought into it in action as well as in word? Is it directly supported by the kind of plans and policies that make it real for the people that it relates to the most? Is it understood by every relevant person? Is it communicated effectively? And is there a process to support the vision with the creation and maintenance of perhaps the new knowledge, skills, behaviors required for us to meet the new challenge or the more specific challenge that we've placed? Key points then, a vision statement is not for marketing purposes. It's not for the website only to try and impress the people that we want to sell to, basically, in the outside world. I wouldn't try and address it unless you're going to use it and do something with it along the lines we've talked about or I've talked about. Once done, it needs to be communicated effectively in a compelling way and made relevant for people. Don't forget that there may be a degree of skepticism because these things are often done poorly and just for external marketing purposes. There may be some cynicism to try to make it as authentic and real as possible and communicate it in that way. And it should be the why and not the what. It's hard to get right, and it may require some ironing to get the crease right over time. So there's this paradox here, I guess, with visions, which is that we're saying that they're really fundamentally important, and yet they're also plastic and need to adapt perhaps to changing market conditions, changing environments, and maybe changing people within the organization as well. But as a leader, maybe the most fundamental question that you can ask of yourself and the people you work with is, how are we going to achieve the vision? How are we going to move towards the vision? And it's so fundamental to leadership practice. And that's a challenge for you to try to have a look at those vision statements out there and see if they're fit for purpose. If we're not answering the right questions in the first place, how can we possibly hope to get the right answers in the end? So I hope that's been useful. Go forth and address those vision statements in your masses, and let's see if we can get them a bit better. And thank you very much for your time. Thanks.